Hey, I've got a question for you. Do you know if you're tracking the right data, the right metrics, the right key performance indicators in your practice? This is something that's huge for us and really helps us make solid decisions within our business. But the prior software that we were using to run our practice made it really, really challenging to actually get that data out and use it in reports. Since we switched to PT Everywhere, this has actually become way, way easier for us to be able to have the right data. We have a dashboard of all the things that we actually want to see, the metrics that we want to pull, and it makes our life a lot easier to pull the information that we need to make the right decisions within our business. So if you're running blind, you're not tracking the right things, or you're having a hard time actually pulling everything together, I highly recommend you check out our friends at PT Everywhere and see what they've got going on with their software platform. It's what we use for our practice. It's been a game changer for us. You can check them out at pteverywhere.com. I think you really like it.
So here's the question. How do physical therapists like us, who don't want to see 30 patients a day, who don't want to work home health, and have real student loans, create a career and life for ourselves that we've always dreamed about? This is the question, and this podcast is the answer. My name's Danny Mattei, and welcome to the PT Entrepreneur Podcast.
What's up, guys? Doc Danny here with the PT Entrepreneur Podcast, and man, I've got a crazy story for you today. One of my friends who I actually met at a CrossFit gym that I trained at whenever I moved to Atlanta. We became pretty good friends. We were in the same business networking group for a while, and would work out together quite a bit. He eventually moved to Charleston. He is a kind of the home service business, and that was about, I guess, 2 years ago. Moved to Charleston, and I keep up with him kind of as much as we would. We live in different cities, right? We talk occasionally, but recently he had a serious health issue that popped up, and I'll give you the backstory on this guy real quick, and I'll tell you the story of what happened with him and what I talked to him about, because I had dinner with him last night, talking about just the crazy shit that happened to him. So he's in his mid 40s, very, very healthy individual. To put it in perspective, he just did a 50K. So this was 3 months ago, just did a 50K, and he placed second overall. So he's fit, and he started noticing that he was having some pain in his neck and in his chest when he would train like really hard, like high intensity, or run over 10 miles. Like it would start to kind of kick in. But for him, like he runs really far, so it's not like a max effort by any means. So he gets tested, he gets all these tests done, and they don't find anything. So the doc basically tells him, like, hey, just don't do these things, right? So that's a common answer we hear, quite a bit. But he feels pretty confident that this is just, okay, it's just a side effect of stressful workouts or long endurance training. So Saturday morning, he's at a CrossFit gym with a 16-year-old son. He's 3 kids, 3 boys between the ages of 12 and 16. So he's at the CrossFit gym with his son doing a partner workout, and he's in the middle of doing a set of wall balls, and he starts getting this pain in his neck again. And so he takes a knee, and it's getting worse, and it's getting worse. And he sits down and, stops working out. And within a few seconds, he's out, cold, no heartbeat, not breathing. He's dead on the ground. And the CrossFit gym, no one really knows what to do. And they're kind of freaking out. They get his son out of there. They lay him down. One of the coaches goes over, and rightfully so, gets an AED machine. They hook him up to the AED. It reads him nothing. They have to start chest compressions. They get a slight heartbeat back. The AED reads it, and they shock him. Still out, still not breathing, still not back to normal. They start chest compressions again. It reads him again, shocks him one more time, and he's back. 4.5 minutes later. No heartbeat, no breathing, 4.5 minutes. Second AED shock, and he's back. Heart rate's at like 300. So he gets taken to an ambulance, or taken by ambulance to a hospital, and he's there for a couple days. And turns out it was just like a abnormality in the function of the heart in terms of like the electrical impulse, and it just essentially short-circuited, right? Like it just stopped working. And he had to have a defibrillator implanted in his lat, directly connected to his heart. And he is no longer allowed to really get his heart rate over like 120 for a period of time. I'm not sure what he's ever going to be able to get back to as far as that stuff goes. He went from placing second in a 50K to having to like walk run to keep his heart rate under, I think it's like 120 beats per minute. And, so it's been a very big adjustment for him, a huge change. And I sat down at dinner with him and I just was listening to his story, and it was just so crazy and unexpected. And I think that's the thing that, the perspective of this, the reason I want to share this with you guys is the perspective that he has, and the question that I asked him that I was so interested to ask him because I didn't actually know the backstory of what actually happened. And I said, dude, would you do anything, is there anything that you wish that you would have done differently? Like, let's say you didn't wake back up and that was it, right? Is there anything you wish you would have done differently? And, his answer was interesting because he said, honestly, no. He's like, I like my life. I think that, I do the things that I like with the people I like when I want to do them. And I feel like I, find a lot of enjoyment in what I do for a living. And I have a good relationship with my kids and my spouse and my family. And, he's like, I don't think I would do really anything differently. Obviously, there's some things that he wants to do with his family that he hasn't had a chance to do yet, and places he wants to go and things he wants to experience, whatever. But it's like, for the most part, no. I feel like, I wouldn't really change anything. And I think that's pretty rare. I think most people, they would change a lot. They would change a ton of things. And his backstory is very similar, to a lot of the entrepreneurs that we work with. He worked in a bigger company, super easy job, good pay. Easy for him to stay there. And he decided that he was going to open this. It's a home inspection company. And he did so in like right before the housing bubble collapsed. It was like 2006, 2007 timeframe. Gets through that because he's smart. He worked his butt off. Had to downsize his company. Tough industry to be in during that time. But I mean, he's a very successful entrepreneur in his own right. And, he really just likes what he does. And he has a lot of time to, do things that he likes outside of work as well, and spend time with people that he wants to spend time with. And, the fact that he said he wouldn't really change anything is pretty rare. And it's, to the credit, I think, to him of building a life that is supported by his business, not letting his business become his life. And for most people, they have very little say over what they do. They have very little fulfillment in who they work with. And you just don't know. You could be a healthy 45-year-old and just drop dead on the ground in a CrossFit gym, for somewhat unknown reasons. And it happens. It happens to people all the time. And, the perspective of this, I think, is important to have, because the decisions we make, and hopefully it's very unlikely, first of all, but hopefully it never happens to any of us. Hopefully we live long, healthy lives. But the reality is not everybody does. And stuff like this happens all the time. I had a baseball coach when I was in college, the guy that was there before I got there, the head coach that was there before I got there, very healthy, late 30s, really good runner. They would do this 3-mile run with the pitchers. And if any of the pitchers beat the coach on this 3-mile run, they didn't have to go to morning workouts at like 6 a.m. for the next week. They didn't have to do any of that. But nobody ever beat him because he was such a good runner. And one day, he was finishing the run. The run finished at the baseball field at like our West campus, and he just collapsed on the field. Same thing that happened to Jeff happens to this guy, and he died on the field. He didn't make it. There wasn't somebody around. And if this had happened to my friend while he was running his 50K and he's in the middle of the woods, he wouldn't be here today. It just so happened he was in a populated area whenever this happened to him. So, I would ask you this, and I tell you the story, not necessarily just to freak anybody out, but I think it's an interesting perspective that he has. So I would ask yourself this, like, if that same situation happened to you, would you change anything about what your life looks like, the things you're doing, the amount of time you're spending with your family, the mission that you're on, the predictability, the say over you have what happens in your life? Would you change anything? And if you would, start working on it. Have perspective for it. Don't just forget what I'm saying, because it's very easy to do that. Don't just, I listen to this podcast, you're driving, you're cutting your grass, you're working out, whatever, on to the next one. Consume more content. Listen to what I'm fucking telling you. If you do not like the life that you have, you need to change it, because we don't have any guarantees in terms of how long we're going to be here, what happens to us. Unexpected things happen to people all the time. Everybody, I guarantee you, if you look at your network of people, there's some loose connection or direct connection of somebody that you know, and something very unfortunate happened to them when they were healthy, young. And I don't know how many times we have to see things like that before we start making changes in what we do for a living, and start realizing that what we do for a living we should get some personal gratification from that. It should support our life. It should not become our life. It should allow us to spend as much time with the people that we like, doing what we like, wherever we like it, for as much as we can while we're here, and develop meaningful relationships and connections with the people that we really care the most about. And if you go to work every day and you hate what you do, and it drains you, it affects your personal relationships at home. It affects the relationships you have with your friends, and your energy levels, your ability to be present. It affects so much, and this is what we spend so much of our time doing. I talk to so many people that are unhappy, and yet they just don't have that push yet to actually just change something and take a chance on themselves. So I hope that this story, this unfortunate event, at least gives you some perspective. And if you don't like what you're doing, if you don't like where your career is headed, where your life is headed, you've got to be able to create a career, a life, a business, if that's what it needs to be for you, that helps support the life that you want and really move towards that, and not necessarily just have the life that was dealt to you based on the decisions you made when you were younger. Because you never know when you might maybe drop dead at a CrossFit gym. Hey, real quick before you go, I just want to say thank you so much for listening to this podcast, and I would love it if you got involved in the conversation. So this is a one-way channel. I'd love to hear back from you. I'd love to get you into the group that we have formed on Facebook. Our PT Entrepreneurs Facebook group has about 4,000 clinicians in there that are literally changing the face of our profession. I'd love for you to join the conversation, get connected with other clinicians all over the country. I do live trainings in there with Eve Gigi every single week, and we share resources that we don't share anywhere else outside that group. So if you're serious about being a PT entrepreneur, a clinical rainmaker, head to that group, get signed up, go to facebook.com/groups/PT Entrepreneur, or go to Facebook and just search for PT Entrepreneur, and we're going to be the only group that pops up under that name.